particular interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, before we get into the formal agenda, I do want to welcome Alan Beveridge, our new planner. Alan comes from Perth East, and he is a registered planner, and has a lot of promise for the township of Allen. So welcome.
All right, who are you?
It's Alan Beveridge.
It is, okay. My apologies. Okay, the minutes from November 5th, is there any errors or issues? Moving second of the minutes.
I'll second it.
Moore, second.
I'll
Second by
second
Cerner,
it.
all in favor?
Yes.
I got you. Okay, we'll move on to the public meeting. Mover and second of the public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application of Bill Ryan related to property located on lot 85-86, concession South Delta Road, we call to order 7:34. Second, please. Dare, let's keep on favor.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Purpose of this public meeting is to consider an application to change the zoning on a remnant parcel of farmland occupied by two gardens from the general agricultural A1 zone to large lot agricultural A3 zone. Submitted by Bill Reimer, our lots 85-86, section STR, geographic township of Valahai, being 140 Elk Street. Diana, can you advise and confirm the date, method, and date of the notice?
Through you, your worship, notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner by publication in the Elmer Express on October 28th and November 4th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by prepaid first-class mail posted 20 days prior to the meeting.
Thank you. And Adam, will give you a testifier. So you was voting.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to change the zoning on a remnant parcel of farmland occupied by two barns in the general agricultural A1 zone to the large lot agricultural A3 zone. The land to be redeemed will comprise an area of approximately 15.7 hectares or 38.7 acres and have a depth of 319 meters or approximately 1,050 feet. And are proposed to be merged in the main head within the budding agricultural parcel to the east owned by Bill Reimer and on the civic address of 49639 Talbot Line. The rezoning would permit the enlargement of lands for continued agricultural purposes, with the enlarged parcel comprising an area of 88.1 hectares or approximately 218 acres and frontage along Talbot Line. The lands being severed, being 140 Elk Street in the town of Elmer, are not affected by the proposed rezoning and are instead governed by the provisions of the town of Elmer zoning bylaw. The change in zoning of the subject land to A3 would ensure the enlarged parcel in its entirety is zoned consistently and is being requested to satisfy conditions of application for consent E11-20 granted by the County of ELGIN Land Division Committee.
Thank you, Adam. Diane, was any comment received from outside agencies?
One letter from Cather Street Conservation Authority with no objections.
Any questions from council? This application? Okay, I need a mover and second. Public meeting related to zoning bylaw amendment application of Bill Ryder related to property located in lot 85-86. Concession South Delta Road be adjourned. Council convening. 7:37. Second. Lewis, Linder, all in favor? Carried.
Because they won't be able to understand that.
Finally, move and second bylaw number 20-72, being bylaw amend zoning bylaw number 18-22. Prince of Arts relation property owned by Bill Reimer, located in lot 8485, discussion South Delta Road, and first second third reading from the same.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
And Moore, all in favor?
yes,
Carried. Another zoning application, mover and seconder, public meeting concerning zoning bylaw amendment application of Donor Farms Limited, and property located at 34th and session 1, call to order, 7:38. Seconder,
I'll move,
Air, Sarah, all in favor? Carried.
yes,
Purpose of the public meeting is to change zoning on a circular farm dwelling lot of a large agricultural lot A3 zone, a small lot agricultural 4 zone, and special lot agricultural A2 zone. Submitted by Donor Farms, lot 34, concession Valley, being 53233, Nova Scotia Island. Diana, can you advise and confirm the method date of those?
Through you, your worship, notice of the meeting was given in the prescribed manner. Issuing the number expressed on October 28th and November 4th. In addition, affecting property owners within 120 meters, and send a notice by prepaid first class mail.
Thank you. Adam, can you give us an overview?
Through you, your worship, the purpose of the proposed amendment is to change the zoning on surplus farm dwelling lot posted separate should be single attached dwelling, detached garage, carport, and control structures from large lot agricultural A3 zone to small lot agricultural A4 zone to permit the use of the proposed lot for residential purposes. The lot comprises an area of approximately 5,032 square meters, or approximately 1.2 acres, a frontage of 62 meters, or approximately 200 feet, and a depth of 81 meters, approximately 266 feet. The zoning of the Racine Farm parcel comprises an area of approximately 53 acres or 131 acres, a frontage of 343 meters or approximately 1,125 feet, and an irregular depth is proposed to be changed to the special agricultural A2 zone for the construction of any new lots or any sort of any new dwelling on the lot. The change in zoning is being requested will fulfill conditions of application for consent number 23-20 by the county August 25th.
Thank you, Adam. Diana, can you, bring a comment or note that agency?
One letter from Patterson Conservation Authority with no objections.
Okay. Any questions from council? We move to the second public meeting related to zoning bylaw and application of Northern Park Limited related to part of the lot 4, section 1, be adjourned. Brown Council reconvene 7:40. Secretary, Louis Linder, all in favor?
yes,
Yes. And finally, moving to second bylaw number 20-73, being about Mohead zoning bylaw number 22. It's where it relates to property owned by Donor Farms Limited, located in lot 54, in section 1, in the first second of the property signage. Lindsay and Lewis, all in favor?
yes,
We have one more public meeting. Number second, public meeting, including zoning bylaw and application. Call order 7:42.
I'll move,
Third, all in favor? Carried.
yes,
Purpose of the public meeting is to consider an application to address matters of general housekeeping nature. Various properties in Valley, the zoning bylaw changes include not limited to part lot 92 STR, Paragraph 31, concession 6, paragraph 28, concession 3, paragraph 1, concession 1, paragraph 44, plan 26, part 3. Diana, can you advise the purpose of the table notice?
Notice of the meeting was given and described in my public number express on October 28th and November 4th.
Thank you. Dan, can you give us an overview?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The purpose of this meeting is to present to council with what we refer to commonly as a housekeeping bylaw. These bylaws are intended to address various discrepancies in the document that have come to our usually through township staff. We've identified a total of 7 properties that need to be rectified in terms of the zoning. So the bylaw in front of you basically picks up those properties and changes the zoning to an appropriate category. The properties themselves tend to be scattered obviously throughout the township. This will be likely the first and only bylaw of its kind for 2020. We did an earlier housekeeping bylaw as well to address some standards. This one is basically a mapping exercise, and it does not in any way change the intent or purpose of the bylaw. There's a few properties that were carried over from the former bylaw and a couple that were missed in the first go around. So it's intended to clean things up, and it's presented tonight for action. Quite welcome.
Vacancy landlords.
No comments on this.
Any questions from council? Mark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I presume the people that own the property would have been notified of the changes.
Dan?
Sorry, I missed that. My apologies.
Okay. I assume the people that own these properties, they've been notified of all the changes or nothing, because a lot of those changes.
I apologize. I'm having trouble with my audio here. Terribly sorry. Must be my location.
That's okay, Dan. Thanks, Scott.
I might actually go.
Brad?
Through your worship, I actually can't answer, I wasn't here first way, but part of the process. I would have to refer to Dan on that.
Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you barely. Yes.
Okay. Question is, the parcels that were, that the zoning bylaw changed, have they been notified?
I'm not clear other than just the normal notification that the township would go through. I'm not sure whether any of the individual property owners were notified.
Your worship, if I may, I don't believe there was anything in addition to the general, with the housekeeping amendments. We typically only advertise in the local newspaper because they cover a wide range of properties. So I'm not aware that at this stage that the individual property owners have been notified specifically, as that is the usual process for these types of housekeeping amendments.
No, well, the zoning bylaw changes have any impact on these residents?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the zoning itself as presented will not change the integrity or permissions given to any of these properties. Most of them are of a clerical nature only to correct the zoning or the some site-specific matters in the bylaw. They don't take away any rights of use for any of these properties affected. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Dan. All right.
Unrelated, I guess they're going to pay one for residential tax. Well, maybe it's fixed right over there, back, so I guess they'll have to deal with that.
Your
I think we
worship,
should- good
your
idea.
worship, through you, the zoning doesn't impact the amount of taxes that you pay, it's the use of the property. So just because you have a zoning, even a commercial use, for example, if you're using the property for residential, or even if it's a vacant property, that's how it's taxed. It's only taxed, and just because it's allowed to have, for example, a commercial use on it, doesn't mean that that's what's being taxed. You're taxed on the use of the property and not just on what you could use the property for.
Okay, the last one then is for residential, I would go there, if they were using it for residential.
Dan, maybe you can clarify for property that's one zone to a rural residential zone. Can you comment on the use of that property, whether or not there is an existing residence on that property?
Schedules here. Is that the property on Jamestown line that's being referred to on Schedule D to the bylaw?
Part lot one, concession one.
Yeah, that is a residential property. The only reason for the change there was a discussion I had with Scott Sutherland regarding an issue with an accessory building in a side yard. And it was decided that the property would best be reflected in that rural residential, or RR zone as we call it, to identify that reduction in the side yard width. And that was the only issue with that property. There was no issue with the use of the property for residential purposes. It's already being used for that.
So your worship, the change that's being proposed didn't have any impact. It only recognizes the existing situation on the property.
Okay, any other questions in regard to one change? No, mover and second, public meeting relating to zoning bylaw and application relating to various housekeeping amendments to adjourn. Our council reconvene at 7:50. Second,
I'll move.
third on,
Second.
mover, all in favor?
Yes.
And finally, mover and second, bylaw number 20-70, the bylaw for zoning bylaw relating to insofar as related to housekeeping amendment affecting various properties located in the township of Malahide, to give a first, second, third reading on the second. This is the bigger.
Yes.
Now we've got, the next one is the Beta Engineering, are they online? I don't see them, but.
The last video turned off.
Okay.
For the purposes of those participating on Zoom, Dan, we've finished off the housekeeping amendment. Thank you so much for your attendance. And if the consultants from Meta Engineering are able to come online, then we will be able to continue with your presentation.
There we are. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a presentation from David Long of Vita Engineering and Technology Services. We'd like you folks to take over. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, your worship.
Okay. Go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, your worship, councilors and distinguished guests. We were asked by the town of Malahide to provide the biannual bridge inspections for your township, of which we concluded recently at the end of last month. The report was submitted to Mr. Sweetland, and we have subsequently had a conversation with him with respect to the outcome of the report. I will turn it over to Amareza. I believe you all have a copy of the report, so we'll try and keep it as brief as we can for you. But generally speaking, most of your structures, meaning bridges, culverts, and those types of structures, are generally in pretty good order. There are some that require attention, and Amareza will take you through and have a quick conversation. If you have any questions, please, by all means, ask us. If you'd like to save them till the end, we could, whichever you prefer. Good, Amareza.
Okay, good afternoon, Council. We inspected 1 culverts and 12 bridges in August 12th to 14th of this year. So overall, we have 5 culverts that classified as major replacement rehabilitation, possible in 1 to 5 years, and we have 6 culverts that needs to be minor rehabilitation, and we have 10 culverts that have no deficiency or very little like deficiency. So I just tell you like a brief description regarding the culverts. The culverts like C4, C7. So the name is like Dorchester, Pegram, and Glen Collin. They need to be like in 1 to 5 in this time period, 1 to 5 years, replaced with new structures, or they need major rehabilitation. And we have 2 more culverts that like C17 and C15. So we recommend like to have major repair for them, because it's really hard to get access to that level and replace with new structures. And regarding the bridges, we inspected 12 bridges. Overall, the condition were okay, but we have 2 bridges that need to be like a major rehabilitation or replacement in 1 to 5 years. They are like B5 Tracy West and B7 Carter Bridge. So the condition is not good. So we like recommend like for that 2 bridges to be rehabilitated or replaced with new structure in an emergency case. The other like bridges are in like moderate to good condition, so there's no like major concern regarding the other bridges.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anything to add?
Yes, through your worship. I was, as Paul said, I was in contact with them about inspections, and there's a few structures that are promoted for repair or replacement, and we've been assessing various rehabilitation techniques that would significantly reduce the cost of those rehabs, and obviously full replacement being the most expensive option. Often these new and various rehab techniques
Okay, thank you. Questions for council, either Matt or you gentlemen? Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering if we conducted a similar study about 2 years ago, so any surprises, or is everything kind of evolving as planned, and we're all on path in the budgeting and capital project?
Through your worship, yes, we've the study that was completed in 2018. There weren't any real surprises with this one. The one that did change was the Carter Road structure that was previously, I believe, a 6 to 10 year replacement. That was now a 1 to 5 year, and that was just basically assessment of those rehab techniques. But there were no other surprises in the report. And per our asset management plan, everything was followed the same process that it was.
Any other questions, either from Matt or from the media group?
Mayor, your amendment, which one do we recommend first?
So the 2020 budget included for the call line coverage, that we're going to data process and all that is on. But that structure, with the updating sections, was one that is an immediate priority. However, the general culvert was a higher priority, along the same scale of project with call line. So that did recommend that the order of those projects change the future capital budget. For that seems a little complicated to see. Okay,
And you look at 75 to 100,000 more than not the or was that a very rare replacement? Look at the 75 to 100,000 more.
Right, so the estimates that are included on the structure inspection are very reliable from a construction standpoint. So we find that those estimates come from the way that the culverts are inspected early and very tough inspection manual, which is a sign of value for each individual asset on the structure, not necessarily with that location or volume of work or those types of things that would treat each construction project. So those estimates are in line with the entire structure inspection manual, but we can rely upon actual.
That's good news, right?
I guess it's good or bad, but we do have our culvert replacement program. Looks at those pieces. I'm sorry, I know a replacement program that looks at those pieces that individually that has part of the structure. So part of the program. Thank you.
Any other questions for either Matt or the meeting? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, your worship.
Thank you.
Mover and second, presentation received from David Ball of Beta Engineering and Technical Services, relating to consulting services for original culvert.
Yeah, what do you need? What do you Who's that? Yes, I'm here. Who's coming?
Okay, I'm gonna change that here on my warden's actual. I want to thank you for inviting the county of Elgin to your meeting tonight to provide an update about county activities. That now I council knows about some of the exciting projects that are underway in Elgin. We value our close working relationship with our municipal partners and are happy to partner with Allied on a number of joint programs and services we provide to residents of our community. Open communication is important, and we are pleased to be able to share what's going on in Elgin with you tonight. Council has just completed a strategic planning exercise, which has established clear goals and priorities, which will guide the actions of the county council until the end of the current term, 2022. These goals and priorities have been developed to be responsive to the needs of our residents and partners, and will guide actions and resource allocations moving forward. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a challenge for all municipalities in Ontario, and is no different in Elgin County. I'm very proud of how council and staff have been able to pivot quickly to continue providing services to our residents in a safe and responsible manner. I'm even more pleased with the way in which the counties, Elgin's local municipal partners, and the city work closely to ensure a consistent response to rapidly changing provincial regulations and circumstances across the province. Despite the pandemic, Elgin County has been able to accomplish a great deal so far in 2020. We have invested significantly in our infrastructure, and our committee activity at the council level has increased significantly with the existing and new committees taking on an increased workload to address community concerns and move projects forward. Finally, the service delivery review process began in February 2020. After the county of Elgin received funding from the Municipal Modernization Fund to begin a comprehensive review of the services that the county of Elgin provides and the manner in which we provide. The goal of the new review was to determine where and how we can provide our services more efficiently and effectively, and how we can partner with Elgin local municipalities and neighboring communities to provide services that are efficient and seamless for our residents. From this review, consultants have identified 110 unique internal and shared services improvements for the county of Elgin that amounts to approximately $3 million in savings over a multi-year time frame. I'll now turn the presentation over to our CIO, Julie Gagnon, who will discuss each of these initiatives in more detail. Julie.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council, can you hear me okay? Great. Cecil, could you just skip ahead to the strategic plan slide, number 5? It's great to see all of you virtually, and it's a pleasure to be here again this year to provide our annual update. As the warden mentioned, a lot has taken place since my last visit. And in 2019, we embarked on a strategic planning process. And the purpose of this process was to identify strategic priorities and associated actionable items that will guide council and staff over the next 2 years. As well, the result of this process will be a coordinated vision that will shape how our communities look over the next decade. So public, stakeholder, and council feedback were gathered and integrated into 3 main priorities: serving Elgin, to redesign how we respond to community needs in a creative and sustainable way; growing Elgin, we want to continue to be the place where people want to live, work, and play; and investing in Elgin to make responsible financial decisions. The next slide includes council's strategic plan video. So Mr. Warden, it's up to you if you'd like to play the video at this time.
It's an excellent video. It's an excellent video, Julie, and I think certainly Dominique and I have seen it, but I don't believe the rest of the council has, so I think that would be a good bet.
That's great.
Go ahead, Susan. Turn the volume up, Susan. I think Julie will share this with the council at another time, so you just carry on.
Thank you very much. We have had trouble sharing the video in other virtual meetings, so thank you for your patience. We celebrate and very much appreciate our positive working relationship with the Township of Malahide, our 6 other municipalities, as well as the City of St. Thomas. And we're very pleased to report that the request for proposal for the Swift Network broadband project will soon close. Elgin's original investment of $527,000 will, once combined with federal and provincial funding, result in $6.1 million of fiber in the ground, and we anticipate this project will commence in 2021. As well, work is progressing well on the ELGIN St. Thomas Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And this, as a reminder, is a plan intended to identify community risks and ways that we can work together to address risks through development, prevention, and risk intervention. The county has really focused on enhancing our communications internally, externally, and with our partners in the community. We are also pleased with our investment in the Health Recruitment Partnership, and this is a partnership with the City of St. Thomas, and it's an initiative aimed at recruiting general physicians to our area. We also provide legal support on a cost recovery basis to our local municipal partners, as well as economic development support, accessibility services, and property assessment services to recover lost assessment. We are very proud of our community and cultural services, including in particular the 10 branch libraries that we have throughout the county and our ELGIN Heritage Center. And we anticipate many, many other opportunities for ELGIN to work with the Township of Malahide, as well as our other local municipal partners arising from the service delivery review. And we look forward to engaging in those conversations soon. We have a number of new and exciting initiatives underway right now. Council recently established a connectivity committee and an environmental committee, and Council has also increased its investment in planning services and is undertaking a review of land division. The 2021 Budget Committee has launched a survey, which recently closed, and an educational video. They're really hoping to enhance resident engagement, as well as accountability and transparency as they undertake their review of the operating and capital budgets. Ambulance services across the county and City of St. Thomas saw an increase of 12-hour service in September of 2020. And this is an enhancement directly related to population growth and general demands on the service. It seems as though for the past couple of years, we've been talking about collapsed bridges. And I'm thrilled to report that we're busy building bridges. The Port Bruce Bridge is scheduled to be completed in December of this year, and the King George Lift Bridge in Port Stanley will be finished in the spring. The Meeks Bridge will be the recipient of temporary bridge once removed from Port Bruce, and an environmental assessment is currently underway in South Hold for that bridge. One of the biggest capital projects that I talked about last year is very close to coming to fruition. We'll soon be breaking ground on the Terrace Lodge development project. So this $33 million project will lodge from a Class C facility to a Class A facility. And the fundraising committee will soon launch a campaign to support the value-added components of this project, and we're very excited about that. Next slide, please. This year, for the first time in its corporate history, Elgin County has the unique opportunity of undertaking and reviewing municipal service delivery review. And this is a comprehensive review of our organizational structure and the programs and services that we provide. I'd like to just quickly thank Michelle and her team, who attended a number of meetings with the consultants, and she did so during the pandemic. We really appreciate all of the time that she put forward to make this project a success. As well, we'd like to thank members of Malahide Council who also participated in this review. We were able to engage Strategy Corp, and this was an independent consultant group. They were able to gather information, provide best practice comparisons, and make recommendations about our services internally, externally, and opportunities for new partnerships. So they reviewed and improved they were tasked with, my apologies, reviewing and improving the county's human and community services with a specific focus on long-term care, examining and improving the county's internal operations, and reviewing, improving, and potentially expanding upon our existing shared services agreements. And that's with the 7 constituent municipalities in Elgin, as well as the City of St. Thomas. The consultants identified that the county has strong, forward-looking, nimble leadership with the desire to implement strategic change. They identified that there is an opportunity to enhance communications and governance in areas that would improve the county's management of contracts. That includes some of our big ticket contracts, as well as the contracts that we have in place with our local municipal partners. They noted that the county celebrates its long-term care homes and that now is the time to address short-term operational and long-term strategic issues. They also noted that this is the right time to embrace the use of modern technology and digital tools to resolve some of our reliance on paper processes and to realize some efficiencies. They noted that our financial state is comparable to our comparators with similar operating and capital expenditures per capita and significantly lower long-term debt. Good news there. They noted that there are a couple of shared services opportunities. Consideration is given within the report to shared services such as IT, shared planning, collaborative purchasing, human resources, and engineering advice. They also noted that before we get too far out and expand to any shared services, there's some work we have to do on our existing shared services. So they've suggested that the opportunity exists to rework the governance and administration of our existing shared services, just to make sure all parties are satisfied and that we have a successful framework in place that will position us for success with any sort of expanded shared services. In terms of city and county opportunities identified in the service delivery review, they identified that there may be an opportunity for County Council to explore developing a joint economic development corporation with the City of St. Thomas, as well. And as a medium-term recommendation, they noted that we could work closely with the City of St. Thomas with respect to our IT services. They also said that our two library systems, so St. Thomas Public Library and Elgin County Libraries, we have a strong history of collaboration, and they noted that we could formalize procurement, save some money through collaborative purchasing, and that we could respond to some growth by exploring the potential for a shared branch in kind of south end or west end of St. Thomas and Southwold area where we're really seeing a lot of population growth. Next slide, please. The consultants also said that before we move forward with any new shared services, that we take a step back and we spend some time working on design principles for service coordination. It was really clear in the consultants' report that through their discussions, both the county and local municipal partners want to continue to improve our working relationship, and all parties generally agreed that policies that balance responsibilities on both sides is something that is needed. So we'll endeavor to do that early in the new year with council's consent. Next slide, please. The consultants also recommend that the policies governing the road maintenance agreement need to be updated and that the funding arrangement needs an independent review. Detailed recommendations are included in the full report, and that's available on the county's website. I could certainly share a copy through Michelle, and a summary is provided in these slides. So I think in the interest of time, I'll skip ahead to the next slide. The consultants also suggested that there may be an opportunity for the county to offer registered professional planning to support interested local municipal partners, which could result in cost savings. That said, I'd like to welcome your new planner to the municipality. Nice to see you on this virtual meeting. Next slide, please. Similarly, the consultants suggest that savings could result from a joint collaborative purchasing initiative between the county and, again, interested local municipal partners. They provided options for council's consideration that, again, are available in tonight's presentation and the full report. So I'll skip ahead to the next slide. Human resources was another area identified by the consultants as an opportunity for a formalized shared service with interested local municipal partners. And the next slide indicates that the county, well, we currently provide IT services to two local municipal partners, Central Elgin and Bayham. We could possibly extend this to after some work is done on some internal enhancements and technology upgrades across the county. And they noted that the county could consider offering engineering advice to our local municipal partners, which could result in some cost savings. So council received this report on November the 10th. They directed staff to provide a follow-up report and some recommendations with respect to timelines and when some of these recommendations could be explored. We know that the real work comes next, and that work will also involve your municipal staff and possibly your council. So we do look forward to having those conversations with your municipality. We also recognize that this sort of organizational transformation isn't something that happens quickly. And we're likely going to be working on this and talking about the service delivery reviewable future. And once again, I'd just like to acknowledge and express my appreciation for the positive working relationship that we have with the Township of Malahide. And we look forward to working closely with you in 2021 and beyond. So thank you very much for having us today. We'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Julie. Any questions on the report of the council that we will wish to ask? You're getting over it easily there, Julie. So, Mark?
When I see in the report, I think the hiring an efficient person, source of good services. Is that correct? Do we know what they're doing now?
Sorry, Your Worship, I only seem to be able to hear through your mic. Could you possibly repeat that?
Mark just said you're report that there's additional hiring of some person services. And obviously we have someone in that capacity already. Did that get through to you?
No, sorry.
And
Did it?
look at that. Okay, thank you, Julie.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, moving second, the presentation received from Elgin County Board Dave Mello and the County CAO Julie Gagnon providing an update on county activities and the county service delivery review we received. Moore, Serna, all in favor? Carried. Next, we have another public meeting. It may sound redundant. We can go over this certain time. It's necessary that we have a public meeting whenever there's a change in council remuneration. So I need to move to the second public meeting concerning council remuneration be called to order.
I'll move.
Yeah. Serna, all in favor?
Yes.
As I said, it's necessary to pass a bylaw to consider increased remuneration for members of council. The purpose of this public meeting is to hear comments and concerns from anyone either in support or in opposition to the proposed bylaw. Obviously, there's no one in the audience. Anything to add, Michelle?
Your Worship, I had a detailed presentation if there was members of the public. However, we have not received any written submissions from the members of the public or any verbal submissions either, and there are no public in attendance this evening. I will just remind council that it is a requirement in the Municipal Act to hold this public meeting when we are considering changing council remuneration. Otherwise, all of the recommendations in the bylaw that's been presented to you this evening is consistent with the recommendations that were made by the Council Remuneration Review Committee at the last meeting. The changes are proposed to come into effect on January 1st of this year, so it is a retroactive adjustment for all members of council for 2020. And the proposed bylaw does include base compensation, increases to base compensation amounts, provision to index those rates of pay annually, as well as small increases in council per diem rates for participation at conferences and workshops, and their annual mileage allowance and mileage rate. I think that the rest of the information has been presented previously. The estimated annual increased cost for 2020 to implement these changes, as was reported at the last meeting, is approximately $7,800 for 2020 and approximately $7,000 for 2021. And with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions that any members of council has, but otherwise I believe it's been discussed several times already.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Any questions from Michelle? Hearing none, moving second, public meeting concerning council remuneration be adjourned, the council reconvene at 8:23. Moving second.
I'll move.
Lewis, all in favor?
Yes.
Eric? Okay, let's move on to Brett.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I have the October report before you for our activity report for non-live fire service. You'll see numbers are trending basically exactly as they normally have for the last years. We had one fire event in the month of October. I think everything else is there on the report, and we'd be happy to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brett. Questions for Brett on this report? No?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a housekeeping thing. I know there was a message sent earlier about some errors in the numbers. And so just wanting to make sure that the package that will be on the website is being updated so the public record. I know you received a correct document, but just want to make sure that it was also corrected for the public.
Yes, it has. So it has been updated within our director.
Any other questions for Chris? Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Brett. I know the fire department are quite busy lately, had accidents. Fire, especially that one accident there, it's too bad the drug person has to do something mistake with the fire department. But you got crash or anything. I don't know the answer, and you'll have to have that police support from them, and not just like the firefighters for the education. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Moving to the second report, F 2012, entitled Emergency Services Activity Department, I told them we received.
I'll move.
All in favor?
Yes.
Matt, you doing the next one?
Yes.
Off-road vehicles.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Earlier this year, the Highway Traffic Act was amended to add extreme terrain vehicles and off-road motorcycles, the existing list of off-road vehicles which may be permitted on municipal highways. Additionally, the change is that effective January 1st, 2021, all of these defined off-road vehicles will automatically be allowed to travel on municipal roads unless the respective municipalities prohibit or restrict their use by bylaw. The township already has a bylaw which restricts use of off-road vehicles to be allowed to specified sending to roadway to members of a township approved recognized agency. Staff are recommending that only the existing bylaw be updated to reflect the new off-road vehicle definition, and that these off-road vehicles not be permitted under any other road segment. Amount of the allowed road segments has been through staff report. I'd also like to note that currently the only township approved agency is the Outlet Trail ATV, who regularly provide their updated insurance coverage to the township, and additionally, respective rules that the township has put in place. Additionally mentioned in this report are a few requests submitted to the township staff by the Outlet Trail ATV Club, which include requesting the allowance of year-round use of the identified roadway segments rather than only seasonal use, and extending the provisions of the bylaw by additional years. Well, staff, hold no concern with recommending amendments to the bylaw to allow the year-round use to recognize agencies. However, given this proposed amendment partnered with additional allowable use by the alternate definition of off-road vehicle, staff do not recommend a 5-year extension, but rather stay with the current 2-year renewal period that the bylaw currently has. By these amendments proposed to the bylaw, the township will satisfy the official requirement to pass the bylaw restricting use of off-road vehicles and still honor the relationships and responsible use of the road by the township. But in that case,
Thank you, Pat. Questions you have on this one?
And so, and we have this for now, we're not, is it up to the club to allow the motorcycles and, you don't think we're going to be able
I'm not aware of what the requirements that the club holds for membership in those clubs, but by the township amending the definition would allow those segments to be used by that recognized club. I don't know the exact parameters to be a member of that club.
Right, so they don't allow that in the club, and they're not allowed in the building.
That'd be correct.
And their layout, if you could go the same, there should be some nearly multiple things, like being home or picking them up, I don't think that's true.
So our bylaw only allows for vehicles on those segments that are included on the map. So all other those segments of vehicles are not allowed.
So it's the same as looking for the ATV also.
Correct.
None of us are here, we'll have more of them themselves, but I don't think the club will allow them.
Right, I can't speak to what they allow or not, but we only recognize agency that the council allows on those road segments, that it would be up to them to implement that.
Love them. Yeah, we should know. Thank you.
Any other questions on that report? Moving to second report, RPS 20-51, entitled amendment of off-road vehicles, bylaw number 1751, use. Secondary.
I'll move.
Erda, Linder, all in favor? Carried.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, you're doing the next one on health and safety?
Worship action, Wednesdays will be presented in the next
Ready?
report. We have before you, sorry to interrupt, Brenda, but you can remove your mask if you wish there, and it might make the presentation go a little smoother. I think my glasses not steam up quite so bad either. That would be great. So we have before you a report on the Occupational Health and Safety Act. In 2010, there was an amendment under Bill 168 that enhanced protections for around workplace violence and harassment. And it was further amended in 2016 under Bill 132, providing some additional enhancements for the protection of workers. Effective January of 2017, we created a comprehensive workplace violence and harassment program that was put in place, and all staff were trained on that program at that time. And that included all of the union and non-union firefighters all trained on that program. And then when council came in 2019, a presentation was done to the council as well. And all staff, as they come in, ever since that first presentation in 2017, received training on the program during their orientation. Recently, we had an inquiry asking us about our compliance with this portion of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and some questions around personal accountability for council members if complaints are not handled properly. So personal liability only arises for members of council in an accident manner that is in itself a breach of the Occupational Act. In other words, if the process outlines investigations and the things that we need to do, and that process is followed, members of council will not be held personally accountable. Alternatively, if they were to, if the staff were to raise an issue of discrimination and harassment, council directed them to kind of turn a blind eye, that could result in some personal liability. Further, the question was to kind of create a summary of the complaints that have
been brought forward under the program. And I'm pretty pleased to say that in the time period that we have here, we only have 3 formal complaints. All those complaints have been harassment based, not violence based, and they vary in nature. We don't have anything that we would consider to be a trend. Multiple, it was not all the same individuals, and it was not all the same departments. So you'll see from the chart that's provided, investigations were completed. It says instruction provided, which means that there was a review of training done at that point, and disciplinary action has been taken on the formal complaints. So if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Gwen. Questions for Gwen on their report? Sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this report, and I'm wondering if it would be possible to receive this report on an annual basis as an update. That would be great. And I guess I had a question on the logistics of, in terms of the liability piece. It talks about that as council, we would be liable if council directed staff to turn a blind eye. But as far as I know, we're not notified when there is a complaint.
That's right. So we have no liability.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I'd like to follow up on that because I don't think we can say that we were not aware. So if there was a complaint, but I'm not sure how, again, I don't know how we blind eye if we don't know that something.
You would be responsible if you had directed staff to turn a blind eye, not that you.
Right.
Your worship, through you, I can maybe add a little bit more there. So in some instances, if the discrimination harassment was considered serious enough that some of the disciplinary measures might include termination of an employee, council would be made aware of it at that point in time. So that's an example, I guess, when that may occur. To this date, the issues that have been identified have not been significant enough to warrant council's involvement based on our existing policies and procedures. If that was to occur where the incidents were substantial enough, that there may be an opportunity for members of council to become involved, and if council didn't wish staff to pursue certain disciplinary actions, then that may be considered to be turning a blind eye. There are some nuances for sure. And that's just an example I can think of at the top of my head.
Okay. Any other questions for Gwen or Michelle? Now, moving to the second report, number HS 2002, entitled Occupational Health and Safety Bill 168 and Bill 152, complaints and training initiative use.
Move it.
Mayor Lewis, favor?
Yes.
Mayor? And Michelle, you're doing that, any island bylaw?
Yes, your worship, through I have one report for council's consideration this evening, and that is a proposed anti-idling bylaw. Over the past few years, the township has received some complaints from different residents regarding excessive idling of certain vehicles within Malahide. In response to those complaints, the staff have worked with the municipal solicitor to prepare a draft bylaw, which is included in the package for council's consideration this evening. The municipal act does provide local municipalities the ability to be able to regulate public nuisances such as idling. There are many municipalities that have taken such action in recent years. Particularly as a result of some of the environmental issues, as we are aware that idling engines produce emissions that can cause health and air quality problems. And indeed, that was the nature of the complaints that the township received to date. As well, excessive idling does create noise and can become a public nuisance as well. So the proposed bylaw prohibits vehicles from idling for more than 3 consecutive minutes in a 60-minute period. The bylaw does recognize that there are some instances when it is necessary or recommended that vehicles idle for a period of time that's longer than the prescribed 3 minutes. As such, the bylaw does include a number of exemptions. For example, vehicles assisting in an emergency activity, armored vehicles, vehicles that are engaged in normal crime practice, and there are several others. I won't go through the entire list that are outlined in the bylaw that has been submitted to council. So staff is recommending the draft bylaw be supported by council, and that the municipal staff be directed to finalize the bylaw, and it will be submitted to council for approval at a future meeting. So this evening, we're looking for comments and input from council, and then we will come back with a revised bylaw as necessary for adoption at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Questions, Michelle, and any item, question?
Mayor Manel, the 3 minutes, is that comparable to what our neighboring municipalities allow?
Michelle?
Your worship, I'm not sure about specific neighboring municipalities, but the municipal solicitor had reviewed a number of other municipal bylaws, and that is the recommended amount of time following those reviews. So I don't know that every municipality does 3 minutes, but that is what the majority that the municipal solicitor reviewed, and it's consistent with that. So I can't speak to all of them, but that is the best practice, I guess, or one of the baseline timeframes.
Mayor Manel, what do you think? I mentioned this, we have a lot of truckers in the area, and we certainly wouldn't want to treat it any other way than it would be in any other municipality. So that's the only reason is, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Scott?
Through your worship, just a couple facts on Untitled. They should legally remove the emissions part. I'm licensed, I'm specialized in emissions through Province, Ontario, and idling vehicles produces 0 emissions. When you turn the vehicle off and restart it, it will pollute for a matter of a few minutes until the computer has a chance to grasp its air-fuel ratio and warm itself back up. So environmentally speaking, a vehicle that's left idling produces 0 emissions. Thank you.
Any comments, Michelle? I have no idea.
No, your worship, the draft bylaw, as I said, was prepared by the municipal solicitor in response to complaints that the township had and based on previous input and direction from council. I cannot speak to, I'm not a mechanic, or I'm not aware of the technical issues. I can't speak to whether they do create them or they don't. I can only suggest that this is the recommended bylaw and parameters that are consistent with other municipal bylaws in the municipal sector.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It doesn't really change the nature of the law. I support that.
Yeah, I just, I guess in very cold weather, 3 minutes is hardly even better. I don't really get 3 minutes of this regular pattern. I agree with Council Lewis, the emissions of the aisle are nothing. We got 30-year-old diesel truck that will blow us from 0 to the aisle, so don't tell them. But 3 minutes, it's not enforceable bylaw. We can do. It's something running 3 minutes, and also like that, we can do nonsense. I guess I have a problem with the system again. Well, I know why we're doing it. It's to abuse some certain people, but I'm not hired to enforce it. So if you tell me how you're going to enforce it, that's what you're talking about.
Any other questions or comments? Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not being a trucker, but knowing several individuals that are with the heavy transports. In the dead of winter, is 3 minutes long enough for that tractor to warm up before they can start to move? I'm not a mechanic, I'm just asking the question. If anyone here can answer it, please do. Thank you.
Your worship, through you, there are provisions for exemptions when the weather is extremely cold. So there is section 3 does indicate that where it's less than 5 degrees Celsius, including a wind chill value, there is an ability to be able to have, that as one of the exceptions. So it does recognize, but also recognizes that there are some exceptions when the temperature is also in excess of 27 degrees Celsius, including humidex calculations. So it does recognize that there are times when, because of environmental conditions, weather conditions, either extreme heat or extreme cold, that there is a need to have longer idling.
Okay, right. There is some flexibility in the bylaw. Right?
Just for Max's concern, there, I know some of their breaks, they from the previous, movements. And comment about windshield only affects students and thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Mover and second, report number CAO 20-18, and the draft ending bylaw be received, and the draft ending bylaw be supported as presented. The municipal clerk is directed to finalize the draft bylaw for submission to approval by the council at the issue. Was that very well? Louis. You can't get a seconder from Michelle, so you turn this back to staff. Revision.
Your worship, through you, if council is not interested in proceeding, and if that direction would be given to staff, staff were asked to prepare this particular, to move forward with drafting or having a plan to guide the bylaw drafted, which we have done. And if council wishes to see changes to the bylaw, then if they would provide some direction to staff about the changes they wish, or if they no longer are interested in pursuing with implementing or enacting the anti-idling bylaw, then if they can provide that direction to staff this evening, and then we would carry on further. Staff are not recommending any additional modifications to the bylaw, in which case then there isn't anything else we need to report on at a future meeting unless there's input from council with respect to amendments or that they don't wish to move forward any longer.
The question is, who get a seconder? Is there enough support for us to let this one die? Sir?
Just to clarify, I do support it, like, there's reasons there, there's reasons in place. It's just in the report, there's facts that aren't actually proven facts that in a legal court and lose. And the recommendation would be just remove that emissions part because legally it's not right, and then certify material. Other than that, it's got to be supported. It's a problem that we have with enforcement of that. That's from second. We're still going to have it in place because we have that in place. We've been brought up in meetings that need to develop that. This is very, baby step. I guess it's in the right direction.
Thank you. Mary probably suggested we bring back some modifications and make the time maybe 7 minutes and take it over. And then we can look at them, that would be acceptable.
Okay, there seems to be enough support to send us back to staff and come back at a future meeting. Some amendments.
Your worship, sorry, just for clarification, so 7 minutes what council is interested in, or 10 minutes council is interested in?
Marcus suggested 7, so I don't know. 7, anyone else wants to speak? Tony?
I guess I would be curious to know of other municipalities, Councilor Warren mentioned, or somebody else should align with other municipalities, so providing a little bit more context. Also changing the motivation, so if it's not usually, if it's not realistic, then we should not pretend that this is about the environment. And also verify that we are in a position to enforce fairly and consistently, because if we know ahead of time that it's not really enforceable, even I believe by a municipal act, we should not be introducing a bylaw that we don't intend to enforce fairly and consistently. So we want verification and some more information on compared to other municipalities.
Thank you, worship staff, for report back on that.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think what I'm looking for, I think the problem is somebody's got a truck in half an hour, an hour, and so you're driving, yeah, that's the problem. But 5 minutes, 10 minutes, one way, trying to keep your work done, that's a big deal, that's just your life. So, if that can be really what they do. You're right, that's what they'll discover, that's London, it comes. A lot of these new trucks shut off after what, 3 months in. They'll clean out, they're built for that, they shut off themselves. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's staff come back with a recommendation of future meeting and see where it goes from there. Next is the reports on outside board. We have bids from the budget committee. Any errors or omissions on the budget committee from October 29th and November 12th? No concern, move in second of those minutes, please. Moved by Moore, seconder.
I'll second it.
Lewis, all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Capital projects, who's looking after that one? Natalie, you or?
Your worship, for you, the next three resolutions for council's consideration are a direct follow-up from the resolutions that were put forward by the budget committee last week. So if you'll recall, the budget committee doesn't have the authority to approve any of the budget items. It needs to be approved through council proper. So the budget committee resolution that was approved asked this council to be able to authorize proceeding with these projects. So these resolutions are on the table for council approval this evening, because as of yet, they're still pending. So it would be the capital projects that have been discussed at the last budget committee meeting, as well as the approval for staff to proceed with the development charges update study and the rural broadband strategy recommendation. So those three resolutions were included in your agenda package, and we would be looking for council's consideration to adopt those this evening.
Okay, any questions? We can discuss this, budget. Any further questions? Okay, we'll go through which individually, Hoover and second, the Peter parking lot design project, the budget amount of $10,000 included in the 2021 capital budget. And that notwithstanding, the remainder of the 2021-22 budget is not yet approved by the Port News Peter parking lot design project, the Hacienda Road Culvert Class EA design project be approved in completion of 2021. Municipal staff be authorized and direct to proceed with the Port News Peter parking lot design project initiative and Hacienda Road Culvert Class EA design project initiation, so that such projects can be pre-planned and tendered and completed on time within budget. So moving second, 11.
I'll move it.
Third, Lewis, all in favor? Carried.
Yes.
And the next one is that municipal council permit a contract with professional consultant services to update the development charging practice study and bylaw with a single source procurement. That notwithstanding the remainder of the 2021-22 budget, not yet approved the service contract for update of the development charging practice study and bylaws of Watson Associates Funds in the amount of $12,500 plus taxes be approved. If we know that such service contract will be funded from the development charging. Moving second to 11. Gare. Lewis. Favor. Carried. Finally, this is in regard to the broadband request proposal. Moving second, notwithstanding the remaining the 2021-22 budget has not yet been approved, due to the staff, the authorized commissioner request for proposal for broadband consulting services to develop a strategy, policy, design, and phase implementation plan to expand broadband services in Malahide and Stalin. Moving second to that one, Lewis. Chair, all in favor?
Yes.
Next, we have minutes from Law Point, October 7th. Any questions or comments? Motion to receive and file, please.
I'll move it.
Linder. In favor? Carried.
Yes.
Next, we have report from the working committee group on good services. Anyone wish to comment or question? Bert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it was a good exercise to go through and really got participation. I think that's really what they wanted. We all received an email from Jim Garrett, I think, reading the games from the room. I think that's why we made the decision. Thank you.
Any other comments? There is a resolution report from the ELGIN Police Costing Ad Hoc Working Committee Group and the results of police service review of consultation received. We have no action to be taken at this time to commence negotiations in the town of Elbert or a contract for services for police services to provide policing service to the township of Malahide. It being noted that the result of the public consultation held subsequent to the public meeting on September 30th, 2020, did not support moving forward with any changes to police service in Malahide, and the other police costing ad hoc working committee having fulfilled its mandate to be dispensed.
Lord,
Movement Moore, seconder, Lewis, all in favor?
Yes.
Next, we have correspondence. There's 10 items on correspondence. Anyone wish to make comments? Support? Birding, move to second to receive the file, 1 through 10. Ritter, Linsky, all in favor?
Yes.
Next, we have correspondence from the Long Point in regard to their 2021 draft budget. Anyone wish to make comments? We've done, there is a motion to receive and file and the draft budget be referred to the 2021 budget regulations.
I'll move it.
Sure, all in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Now, we have other business, Scott, so you want something?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in regards to last meeting, we had council and Homer Express. Rob does a great job of working. And just want to make it clear that any decision that I put on the table or idea I put on the table are totally from a constituent of Allied Township. Are totally from this. Never will I make a decision on what's going to better myself or my daughter getting her homework done. So those were facts that I made, but they did not pertain to my decision wanting to move forward with the rural ideas of internet meeting municipalities. So as long as that gets clarified, that my decisions are totally for the municipality and not for the betterism of my own internet home.
All right, thanks, Scott. Any other business? Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a letter on this. Make it brief. This is from Jim Hare. What spurred the letter on was retired friend of his. He's now under lockdown because of freedom. He's a retired farmer, and there's still lots of joy and anticipation going on daily drives countryside with yellow harvest operations as it goes up and down from the soil he lives on. This freedom really took away the gentleman's freedom, and that's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing for a guy. It's just awful. Like these. The ones that lose their freedom should never never be afraid to voice their displeasure, because they have the same rights of the Constitution as the Wyoming farm. In Jim's letter, it's no secret that we're not in favor of the Elmer Queens. I won't talk to one person who's in favor of the Elmer Queens. Only be a farmer resource. The Elmer Police had any guts to put stop turkey about it, put the lawn service, and not be very hard for them. Okay, the Elmer should look at the Elmer deer, and Elmer sold out places. Thank you, signed Jim here.
Thank you, Matt. Any other business? Jeff?
Mayor, now, just a comment that I received from ratepayer on Imperial Road, in the Oak Cemetery area. He commented on the number of accidents that have occurred in that area, and they would like to see the speed looked at, changing to 6 feet from where it is all the way down to 3 down the road. And the reason is number of accidents, I didn't know the number of accidents in place in that area. But, you see there are. So if that could proceed with the county of this, it would be.
Well, we can refer a request in the county if this council seems necessary. And there's 60 right down past cemetery.
This is something in that area.
So, there's no other road between there or that house. So I'm not sure.
He meant that, that's what he said in his comment, like, after the report, after the fact was emailed. And, he's already contacted the OPP, and, they had some kind of counter that they're going to be picking up shortly. So that they know how many people have been speeding in that area. And, as you travel that road, you will also see the additional lawn signs that people have put up to slow down. So it's definitely a concern in that area.
Okay, we staff can pass on that request to the county, and then that is a county road, and it'll be back to us in regard to changing the speed to 60.
Mr. Mayor, could we ask, would our staff be able to just report at least on the accidents first, then I'd like to verify those statistics before we refer this to county? Is that possible?
Yes, I can check into that. I know that there's new information on accessing that data that's not regularly provided with this online tool now, so I can check into the status of where that program is at in order to get that data. That I'll be happy to work for that.
Okay, Sarah, just verify the written issue.
Thank you very much.
Work.
In Longish area, that we go into 60, they don't work up there, it's still not as good as it should be. And give it some more, it's a low gate version of that. And over the last few days, and yeah, someone told that, but you guys that work there, you know, 65%. They still get. And we have to spend a lot of money if we want to get the other done for it. So, and I did a report, and I think after that one, but eventually, how to improve roads in areas like that. We have done everything in the recommend. So anybody can say that's not a good area, well, oh, that's all. But I think we need to get some enforcement out there. It should be hard to do. And let's start cracking down on it. That's why we did this. It's not going to work in place. It can't be called. Let's just get this fixed up and running.
Anything else on business? The bylaws. Moving second, bylaw number 20-63, the bylaw provided for the drainage work. W shall be drained, grants 1 and 2 be read a third time and finally passed. The property sign is
Move it.
Brewer. Linsky, all in favor?
Yes.
And moving to secondary, bylaw number 20-74, the bylaw authorizes remuneration and expenses for members of Allen Council Council for 2020, begin the first, second, third reading process. Item 2.
I'll move.
Mayor Lewis, all in favor?
Yep.
And finally, over the second, the council move into closed session at 9:02. Pursuant to section 253-2 of the new civil act 2001, is amended to discuss the following. One, personnel matter, but an identified individual and the labor relations or employee negotiation matter regarding staff performance review. And two, personnel matter, but an identified the labor relation or employee negotiation matter regarding Mount Fire construction.
I'll move it.
Executive Serna and Whitner, all in favor?
Yes.
2-minute break, and anybody need to have a washroom break?